We were aware that Acclaim had a deal that they were going to do all the home games because also they had done super high impact for the home. And Acclaim had their kind of production group, which was our main point of contact, but then they had the two software houses, Probe and Sculptured. And so there was a lot of communication that had to kind of bounce back and forth.
Probe offered me Mortal Kombat on the Mega Drive, the Genesis version, and I said yes. I'm free. I'm available. Like a job's a job, and I said, well, what is it? They were able to kind of actually bring me an arcade machine into my house. And kind of started playing it, and I thought, well, this looks easy enough.
When Mortal Kombat 1 was going to be made for the Super Nintendo, through Sculptured Software, we had a programmer that was from outside our place, and brought him in and said, hey, you're the main guy. And that did not go as well as we would have wanted it to go.
Tests were right.
Ed and I would get versions of the game, and so I would give feedback in terms of the pixel art as best I could. Of course, the home games at the time, they didn't have quite the capabilities that we did in the arcade.
I think the biggest problem that we had wasn't as much the power of the machine, but how big the memory of the Mega Drive was. We had to shrink all the sprites really down as much as we possibly could, and there's a lot of frames of animation in there. We started off by kind of basically taking out every other frame, and that wasn't enough. So then we had to take out like 3 out of 5 frames, and then kind of concentrate on the important animations, the ones that let you see most. Williams have like a method of writing. It's almost like a kind of multi-threading. It's like that there's a number of different programs all operating at the same time. So one of those programs operates one of the characters, one program operates one of the weapons, one of them operates the background, and all of those different little programs kind of speak to each other. That isn't a method of programming I had any experience of. It took me a while to work it out. Kind of Probe were getting very nervous because there wasn't anything on the screen. I was working, there wasn't anything on the screen. And then eventually I was able to basically kind of translate the original code almost line by line. It kind of worked, and the whole thing kind of came to life.
Fight.
What it meant as well, though, was that it was very accurate, very close to the original arcade version in terms of how it feels playing it. So everyone was then very happy with me, which was great.
Genesis played much better, and it had the blood, the abacab, and all that.
Get over here!
The Super Nintendo version looked great, but it didn't play as good as the Genesis version.
The programmer that was the lead, but he made some missteps at the beginning of the project, and it was really hard to finish. These were conversions. These were not original games. You're trying to take the code and the assets and port it to that platform. They had this little multi-processing system in there. He said, I don't like the way that works. I want to do it my way. So he's going against the grain the whole time.
Johnny Cage wins.
The quality of the game was something that that was important to us. I know Ed was a stickler in terms of what he was willing to approve.
Come here!
And we were down to the wire. We were, saying that, we're not going to approve it until you fix this, this, and that. And
I ended up having to help him. So it got done, but it didn't. It played not quite as well.
they needed to build millions of cartridges, and there's lead times involved with that. And so those two things kind of conflicted a couple times, and there was some tension there.